This is part 3 of Who Are the Real Jews analysis. The Real Jews analysis. Uh, Analyzing who are the real Jews. Okay, and so I came across in my last analysis, I didn't expect it to take 30 minutes again, but I came across a point that I kind of started analyzing and didn't finish or give the strongest part of the analysis. And I'm not going back right now to check the Bible. I'm going by my memory, and I don't know everything about it, but I do know that nobody's discussed these things, and these are very clear, that I'm bringing out the most clear, obvious things. And so if you think about where did ethnicity start, I don't know if they called people Jews. I'm not confirmed on biblically, but I'm assuming this might be correct based on what I do know. I'm not sure if they were called Jews before the Tower of Babel. I don't know if Noah in the ark was called a Jew because everybody spoke one language. So I'm saying go back and check on this stuff, whoever hears this, and at some point maybe I'll get a chance to check on it. But so I'm not making a conclusion here, but saying it's a possibility that the Jewish, if you want to call it an ethnicity, did not come about officially or technically until after the Tower of Babel, when God changed language. And so, but we do know that when Moses came along after that and helped the Jews, the Israelites, they were called, escape Egyptian slavery, that they ended up relocating in Israel. Now, I'm not going to say where exactly. I forget if it was Canaan or close to Canaan. I don't remember. But it was Israel. They were traveling through Israel, into Israel. And so they landed in Israel. And that became known as the Jews. They later became known as the Jews, and Moses wrote the Bible. And then the lineages of David and everybody else, that's who was followed. So at that point in time, the Jews were in Israel, okay? And they came from Israel. Prior to that, maybe everybody was considered a Jew. Everybody in Noah's family could have been considered a Jew, which means Shem, Ham, and Japheth could have, but not for sure, been considered Jews. But I don't. They all spread to Ham. We know Ham's family went to Africa, in South Africa, or below the Sahara Desert, right? And so, but everybody that went westward to Asia and India, they would have been Jews too. So I don't think it was that, based on that. I think it was that the part of the family of Noah's sons, who, whatever language, they had different languages, but they ended up going to, apparently had Hebrew and Greek. I don't know what, I forgot. But they ended up going to Israel. And that's the family that the Bible followed, their lineage and everything else, and traced it down to Christ. And so it may have been that they were chosen at that time. I haven't heard us teaching specifically on this in the timeline of that, when they were first called Jews or anything. But it just makes sense in one way that when ethnicities came about, that there was Jewish ethnicity, and if that's considered to be an ethnicity. So, but the point is, they're all related. They're still all related to everybody in the world, from God, Adam, and Eve, from Noah's family after the flood. And so I'm going to go back and reiterate a point and expound upon it, or I may end up closing this out pretty quick, part 3. But it may lead to something else in the analysis. This is kind of an open analysis and showing, but simplifying it, because people always lie today about who the Jews are and claiming they're Jews, right? Based on skin tone, claiming that the Jews were never light-skinned. But we know that people for years and years and years in Israel were light-skinned. So some people would argue that Jesus' time, maybe Jesus was a little darker skinned, but not as dark as Africans typically, but as dark as Pakistanians possibly. And, I think that speculation comes from just trying to appease racist black people who claim there was no such thing as white people. It was only all black. And the real Jews were black, and the white people lied and tried to make it look like white people were Jews. I don't think, I think the truth is that it's obvious that people who lived in Israel, ever since we've known, have been light-skinned. And so maybe there's something somebody can bring up in history that's legitimate and not just bullyish. That's true, and it could be that, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. If we can know the truth, it matters. But it doesn't matter. And the ones that I hear say that white people aren't the real Jews, they want to claim that white people can't go to heaven, only black people can go to heaven and all that. And that matters because that's a racist statement. That is racist. And so we lie about people. We've allowed people to lie about racism and who's racist and all that. And there's technically more black racists in America than there are white racists. It appears. I mean, there's more open haters in the black community of white people than there are open haters of white people than there are white people who hate black people. So it's, but the trick is that the Democrats always lie about who's racist. And really it's Democrats who are more rooted in racism. They may actually be racist against Trump. White Democrats might be racist against Trump and hate Trump as a white guy for helping black people. And so they lie and say he's racist. And they do that to all Republicans because Republicans teach one nation under God, which means it really actually means that we're one human race. Some of them may not understand that, but that's what it's, if they're accepting of God, one nation under God, which defines us as created and endowed by our Creator from Adam and Eve and from Noah's family after the flood. That's the God they're talking about, which says we're one human race, and we got ethnicity from when he changed language at the Tower of Babel. So, I mean, I think technically, I'll just summarize and say my conclusion at this point is, but I'm not 100% concluding on this. I'm just saying at my point, to simplify it and quit analyzing for a second, my conclusion is that, Israel appears to have been lighter skinned for many years. But that's not the reason. They weren't chosen for their skin tone at all. And I also want to say that Moses married an Ethiopian woman. So she may have been darker skinned. And her family became family with Moses. So they may have been adopted. A lot of Ethiopians may have been, I've gained too weight too fast and I get tongue tied. But the Ethiopians may have been being married into, her cousins, her sisters, her aunts and uncles become not just in adoption or being married into, not adoption exactly, but being married into the Jewish family. We're part of the Jewish family, but they believed in the same God. The family he married into did believe in God. So some people claim that she wasn't from Ethiopia, but they moved to Ethiopia across the Red Sea from Saudi Arabia. Okay. But I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I haven't really seen evidence against it. I haven't had time to figure that out all the way. But I kind of think that's wrong. I think that somebody may have said that because they wanted to deny that she could have been black. So Moses' wife, though, I suspect was black and from Ethiopia. So she became married into the Jewish family. And he would have had, if she was darker skinned at that time, I think it took time for skin to darken, like a few thousand years. And they hadn't been there 1,000 years yet, I don't think, after the flood. When Moses was there, I don't know how long that was. They could have been. That's something to learn. And I learned that kind of stuff easier from other people instead of I don't really have time to go look it up and study it or research it. And maybe I will have time later on. That's definitely something I want to know. How many years was it after the Tower of Babel that Moses? So how many years after the flood and after was it that somebody lived in Africa near the equator? So how dark was their skin at that time? So I think skin dark because I can't say I believe, I suspect, highly suspect, that skin darkened living near the equator in Africa below the Sahara Desert for 1,000 years, and really 3,000 years before Christ. I think it was almost 3,000 to 4,000. I forget, but I'd say it's at least 2,000 to 4,000 years between the flood and Christ when Christ was born. So somebody can double check that. But I'm giving you a legitimate timeline map in a sense. That's not where I don't have it accurate, but it's pretty close. And so it's not, even if I said it was within 10,000 years, that's a lot better than what these fake scientists do, or these corrupt scientists that tell you 10 million years. Okay, I'm way closer than that, right? So, we got. Sorry, I'm dead. Let me. Okay, the problem is I'm making this video while I'm sleepy, but I kind of wanted to finish the analysis points and get to the summary, and I'm getting there. I just started to do it and started analyzing again. I didn't even think about that, but the summary of what I do know is that Moses married an Ethiopian woman. That could have brought some Ethiopians into the family of the Jews by marriage. And also Moses had children. I assume he had children. That's one person. We talk about Abraham's children and different people's children, but I wonder, I don't remember hearing the stories of Moses' children. Not right now, I don't. But okay, so I'm getting stuck on analysis again. But you have, assuming he had children, they'd been half Ethiopian, half Israelite, right? And but by spirituality, they were Jews, right? They would have been Jews. So anyhow, that's how other people could have become Jews through marriage, right? And so therefore, there could be some dark-skinned Jews, but the Israelites who lived in Israel appear to have been light-skinned as far back as I can think of. I don't know any part of history where Africa and Israel switched, or where white people took over Israel because it was black and pushed them into Africa. I don't know any stories like that. That could exist, but it would have had to exist between the time of Moses and Christ, or after Christ came, between Christ and the United States being founded and all that. I don't know. I don't think it happened though. So from that, if that was a possibility, or if there's any real story like that, then that's possible. But as far as how people got dark skinned, I'm just going to repeat. I think they got it from living near the equator for a few thousand years. And I think, I haven't looked at the map yet, but I think, isn't Australia near the equator? And they said the Aborigines people used to live in Australia. It is possible that dark-skinned people lived in Australia, and that white folks from Europe would have wanted to take over the island. That's possible. But it may have just been half of the island, or half of some of those islands. I think there was some dark-skinned people near the Philippines, but they could have migrated there. They could have ridden a ship from Africa. It's not pretty far, but not that far, right? They could have ridden a ship from over there. And so most dark skin could have come from Africa, but anywhere near the equator. If they're, that could have happened over a few thousand years, right? Easily, I would say. To protect your skin from the sun. Vitamin D darkens your skin. It darkens my skin. When I go out to get a tan and look healthy, it darkens my skin. And I'm beige. I'm not white. Nobody's white. All white people are actually beige, not white. And all black people are actually brown, not black. So, um, but vitamin D does protect your skin from the sun rays. And you actually, the sun actually helps you develop the vitamin D. But so do they say that fruits do. I've heard it before that fruits have more vitamin D near the equator. And so that's kind of a repeat of the other ones. I guess I don't have a big conclusion to go to, except some stuff I may have drum up real quick. Not drum up, but figure out that I forgot to mention and close out here. So I'll try to do a summary one more time. So if it's true that the skin darkens when you live close to the equator, that could mean that Adam and Eve were not black. And so they want to call that racist, but I just gave you evidence. It's not as racist if it's not what they want. And they're the ones being racist and wanting to claim Adam and Eve were black. That's usually Islamic types or people, branches of Islam that want to claim only the Old Testament, God of the Old Testament is the only God and Jesus is the devil. They claim, so they're against the New Testament, claiming Jesus is the devil, trying to take that he's God instead of the Old Testament God being God. And then you got the ones, so that's similar to Judaism, some modern Judaism that rejects that Christ was Messiah. And so I've seen some racist black groups that do these things, and they call Christianity a white religion and white supremacist religion and all that. And that's partly where they get this white supremacy from, because our country, the United States, was founded on biblical values, and they're calling that white supremacy. And so they're being racist by calling the Bible racist, because the Bible says that Jesus came for all people. And so they're trying to say that Islam is a black religion, and Christianity is a white religion. Then they're trying to define Asian people as black, Hispanic people as black, all to hate on white people and to team up against white people. And so that's racist. That is actually real racism. And they're playing. And so a lot of white people in the Democrat Party condone that stuff because they want us to stay segregated, because they're the real racists. A lot of them. Not just because they're the real racists, but they think we can keep them divided. We can divide and conquer, and then put the new world order in and have all the police take over everybody and put a chip in their arms and like an ankle bracelet and keep track of everybody. Criminalize everybody with an ankle bracelet. I mean, put an ankle bracelet on everybody and treat them all like criminals. Trace their every step. Right? That's the Democrats trying to apparently go that way. I mean, why else would white Democrats lie about people, the Republicans, being racist all the time, and get this and have black racists defining who's racist and validating? Yep, if a black person says they're racist, then they're racist, and it's because that black person's racist, just like that black Democrat usually is racist, just like the white Democrats, and wants us to stay divided in order to divide and conquer. Some of them do it in order to divide and conquer for government power, and then other ones do it because they like us staying divided just because they're all racist. And so, to simplify that, the Democrats, I'm trying, because it doesn't make sense a lot of times, but the Democrats who always falsify racism in the Republican side, the white ones, and they have the black Democrats validate them, it's because they're both racist. Both black and white Democrats are racist who do that. The ones who do that are both racist, it appears. They're both racist and doing that to keep white and black people segregated. So there's a bunch of them that are doing that just to keep them segregated as much as possible. And there's other reasons they could do that too, because they also like to keep them segregated, because some of the black Democrats that do that are doing that so they can make slaves out of ghettos to the drug cartels, usually drug cartels to make slaves out of the ghettos. And they're okay with fentanyl coming in and killing people. They're got no problem with that. And I don't understand these Democrat voters that are going, no kings. And they're going to the no kings rallies. And it's like, they should be happy that Trump's actually fighting a real drug war and stopping the fentanyl from coming in and killing black people in the ghettos, if they really cared about black people. But it's killing lots of white people too. So are they supposed to be happy that it's killing white people? The white Democrats, are they supposed to be happy it's killing white people? You know, uh, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. So it is not crazy at all. It's good. It's crazy that they want to protect fentanyl. That's crazy. So I don't. It's clear as day that that's a problem, and it's not just about we just disagree with different things. They're they're okay with killing people just for no reason, and so um so who are the real Jews? So one more. I'll just caveat. I'll throw at you if that's a word. I forget what caveat means, but I'm falling asleep. I'm sorry. But what is maybe I got diabetes after what I ate recently. But nah, I just didn't get much sleep. So if could be both. But jeez, I'm sleepy. Whew. How about I just fall asleep? Let me hit pause. Okay, I'm just going to try to do a conclusion one more time. So my conclusion is, who are the real Jews? The best I can tell, the real Jews came from Israel after the Tower of Babel. After Moses escaped Egypt, they went. And there must have been Jews in Israel already. I don't guess they enslaved all Israelites, but they had a lot of Israelite slaves. And so I'm lost again because I just realized, the slaves who escaped Egypt should have had a place to go to in Israel, but maybe they didn't. I don't know, but maybe they created. How are they called Israelites if they didn't have a specific land in Israel already? But maybe they went to a place further away from Egypt, so they couldn't be recaptured. So I don't know, but they wandered around for a long time and found a promised land in Israel. All right, and so that was the Israelites. That's the Jews. The Moses people became known as the Jews, if they weren't known as that already before that. All right, we know that. And as far as we know, they were pretty light skinned. I don't know that for 100%. But we assume they're light skinned because modern times we've seen that Israel people are mostly light skinned. All right. Doesn't matter. It's just that it's the truth. All right. It's just the truth. All right. As far as I know. So I'm not going to sit there and say, I know that I know that I know that I know, like some racists say, just because they're trying to hate on somebody. That we know it because I hate you. There's no way they could have been white because I hate white people. It's not, that doesn't make Israelites black just because you hate white people. All right. And because you think that there is something superior about Jews. Jews are not superior to anybody else. They're just, as far as I can tell, mostly chosen people means that they were just happened to be the family tree that God followed to write the Bible down to the lineage of Christ. There's more to it that we'll find out in heaven maybe, but the basics of it that we see, we can infer because we see it. After Jesus came, and he shows their lineage all the way back to Adam and Eve, see, to prove we're one human race. He used that family, a small family within the Jewish culture. And I guess, I don't know whether I can't confirm that it's a culture or an ethnicity. But fundamentally, it was treated like a culture. And it's supposed to be a Christian religious culture, technically. So, in the sense of God chose them in that way, and that might be part of why he calls it chosen. They were chosen to be the religious culture that documented the writings of the Bible, that traced us all the way back to Adam and Eve, to show that all Gentiles and Jews came from Adam and Eve, and we're all really one human race, but he called this culture Jews, or ethnicity Jews, after the Tower of Babel. If it came after the Tower of Babel, he called it ethnicity. All right, so these are conclusive thoughts here, and as far as an incomplete conclusive thoughts, but it's not inconclusive. It's just those questions I brought up on the research are things to research and be able but be honest about it and find out. Those are easy actually things to find, some of them, if they're documented. And various questions I've come up with that I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about this or that, but that answer has to be there. So I haven't heard people approach it this way. And to me, it's the most obvious way to approach it, but we've never taken time to do this. And a lot of people don't think it's important. They think, oh, that's just a bunch of idiots out there that always hating on everybody. Well, let's give some proof, and let's just show that we're one human race. Let's validate that. And that you don't think it matters to show we're one human race, and that the Bible shows it? It does. So it's generally still showing we're one human race. That's not a question. I do have a conclusion on that. It shows that we're one human race from Noah's family after the flood. The flood disqualifies evolution. The flood killed off the whole earth. The evidence shows it was a worldwide flood, and that's the only family left. And that's not 10,000 years ago. Maybe it's 8 to 10,000 years ago, 9,000, I forget. So I think it's a little over 8,000, right, that the flood happened. So therefore, you couldn't have evolution that fast. That disproves evolution, right? So they were writing the Bible back then. It wasn't a Neanderthal writing the Bible. It wasn't an ape writing the Bible. It was that would be the evolutionary theory, but we don't believe in the evolutionary theory. But so you have human beings writing the Bible, inspired by God. They had experience. Moses saw the burning bush, all that stuff, and that kind of stuff. And so I do believe they had miracles back then, more than they do now, because now we have the story of the Bible and don't need miracles to prove. God doesn't need to give us miracles to prove who he is, to give us evidence anymore, because we have the story of the Bible. And he rose from the dead. So I think that the Jews were God's chosen family to write, so he holds them special because it's a special memory, because the New Jerusalem, the new heaven and earth, there will be a New Jerusalem, and it'll be the capital of heaven and earth, I think, forever and ever and ever, because Christ was born, or Christ was from there, right? So I always forget, it's Jesus of Nazareth, born in Bethlehem. So Jerusalem, I forget why Jerusalem was that where he was crucified, or near where he was crucified? I have to refresh my memory on that. So that's a bad thing. I should remember that stuff, right? But I haven't studied that in a while, a long time actually. So I don't think even that was pointed out. It was pointed out to me quite a few times, like in passing, real quick. So people with good memories remember that. But I do know that Jerusalem is the capital forever and ever, right? So the New Jerusalem, God rebuilds the earth, right? The earth will be destroyed somewhat, but not by God, not completely by God, but by people, I guess, and partly by people and by biological problems. And so, but not completely destroyed, but God rebuilds it for the new heaven and new earth. All right, so how do I finish concluding that? I'm getting close to running out of time again. I'm just falling asleep. Hold on. I guess I can't completely conclude because I'm confused by the Jews who don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah anymore. So how do you call them Jews when they deny their own who they were, who Jesus said they are, who God says they are? And so that to me gets confusing. And then you got all these people marrying into Judaism and stuff, and being able to call themselves Jews because they did marry into it and married people who were Jews, but denied that they're Antichrist Jews. And so the thing is, you do have a lot of Antichrist Jews now and stuff. And so it could be almost like saying who's the real Jews. But I would say technically you could still say the real Jews are Jews who believe that Jesus was the Messiah and that they're not Antichrist in that sense. And so they're still connected to Israel. But so I guess if you want to say there are real Jews, then it has to not just be a culture. It has to be an ethnicity as well. So it's people who are married into the Jewish family or who are actually from original Jewish families that did not cross marry into other ethnicities. But so I don't have a complete conclusion on that. And there would be some black Jews married into Jewish families and stuff like that. Asians too. But I mean, what's the big deal?